Time to talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the giant four-armed death cow thing of corn. Anyway, the Bloodbrute Behemoth and Gorgons in general. I've got a nice battle of them up against one of the tough matchups historically, the toughest, potentially, in some people's opinion. Vampire counts against Samurai Warrior once again. We've got Morgur, the Shadow Gave, leading the way this time. Bloodbrute Behemoth and a Jabberslythe to spawn two Ungor Raiders, front line of Ungor Spearmen, Bray Shaman hidden here in the woods, and the Regiment of Renown Centaurs. Should also highlight these guys real quick. Probably will do a separate video about them down the line, but they've got the upgraded Rowdy, which also gives them a little bit of regeneration, as well as the Perfect Vigor, same as before. They also get Poison, melee, and missile damage, which is very good for a mobile unit. You can see them kind of hucking some fancy colored axes? No, I thought there was some kind of green tracer effect. Maybe that's just from the woods. Anyway, Manfred, some Vargeist, a Banshee, a whole bunch of zombies, 3 Blood Knights, which is going to be always pretty strong against the Beastmen. Even these new Beastmen monsters don't have the most armor. I mean, 60 is pretty good, 50 is okay. It's like middle, medium armor, right? You could consider it's not bad. It definitely helps, but up against something like Blood Knights, where they just do insane charge damage, anti-large. Of course, Frenzy being buffed does benefit Blood Knights as well, right? Gives them a little bit of a buff, so they're going to be very, very scary for me. Obviously, for the spawn, Jabberslythe, and the Gorgon. Gorgon can fight back relatively well, but let's take a look at what you get. So 50 armor on this guy, Regiment of Renown here with extra leadership, of course. It also gets Frenzy and scaling damage. It's similar to Snitch, I believe. It's exactly the same, I want to say. I haven't done any testing, but it's not. It used to be a little bit overtuned. I think they had since nerfed it, but he also gets this. All Gorgons get this. Strength from Flesh, 8 hit points per second, regeneration in melee, and helpfully we can compare that to Manfred, who's over here summoning some zombies on the Wolf's Run. Yeah, Gorg Hooves of Wolf's Run. Wow, that's a mouthful. We'll just call them Wolf Runners. The Wolf Runners. So the hunger here on Manfred, which, did he actually bring the hunger? No. Okay. So he didn't actually bring the hunger on Manfred. Interesting. So we can't actually compare. But I believe hunger's either 4 or 6 heals per second. 8 heals per second is on par with somebody like Sigvald or Boris. It's like the highest kind of level of regeneration. So that's quite good. But here we're able to get the spawn in a little bit of a trap. We get a Cygor summon, and the Bloodbrute Behemoth comes over, so this is a really bad situation for Manfred. Also going to throw Overcast Traderkin from the Shaman here. The Shaman Traderkin is sort of one of my answers for Blood Knights. Does a lot of damage to low model count type units. Also going to do some good damage to Manfred here as well. And okay, so they do have a little bit of a green effect on their throwing axes. That looks interesting. Yeah, well, it looks a little bit odd, but okay. They're actually going to be able to keep up with Manfred, and due to the poison and their own fast speed, they can keep him locked on the ground here relatively well. Bloodbrute Behemoth got to detach while the Jabberslythe and the other monsters kind of fight. Meanwhile, the other Blood Knights basically killed this Chaos Spawn, and then swept up and around, and are now going to collapse in the rear. Oh yeah, gotta love some Blood Knight action here. Oop, looks like they're going to nope out of that. I get a spawn summon going here from Morgur. A little bit early to use that, but I wanted to block that rear charge from getting onto the Jabberslythe specifically, and to the unit of spawn that I actually have brought here. But that does lead to the Bloodbrute Behemoth getting a little bit caught out here. Them and the Centaurs. Nice zombie summon is able to somewhat screen. It does look like Manfred might be able to get back up in the air. The Blood Knights also swing over one unit to help deal with the Wolf's Runners. The Gorg Hooves. Such a weird name. But, yeah, Manfred does squeak away there. Should be able to heal himself back up, no problem. So that's great. Blood Knights also wheeling away. So, honestly, although it looks pretty good for me, Vampire Counts obviously still have plenty of ability to recover on the bounce power. A lot of the chaff is kind of engaged now. My Ungor Raiders mostly just sitting there, not really doing anything useful, but that's fine. Main engagement's still somewhat over here as things get a little bit spread out. I'm going to have to keep my forces from getting singled out by the Blood Knights. I definitely want to keep all of these monsters together. A little bit of a monster mash. So let's see the Jabberslythe, Bloodbrute, still doing just fine. Let's actually look at how much HP the Bloodbrute, if any, has lost. Yeah, okay, like 200 HP regenerated so far, so really not too much damage on him. But Jabberslythe going to get in here. The Drain, sort of Mortis Engine effect of the Jabberslythe. Again, we'll talk about him in another video. But it is going to be very good in this matchup and a few others, I think. Especially here, given that the Jabberslythe can't get shot by missiles. Going to be very, very good in this matchup, and I definitely think it helps even things out, as well as the Gorgon. The Bloodbrute Behemoth specifically is one of the best monster-killing tools I've seen in the game, like monster versus monster. And we'll show some testing again after the fact with regular Gorgons, as well as the Bloodbrute going up against Shaggoth, so stay tuned for that. But so far, looking pretty good. Balance Power has swung back a little bit towards the center as some of these Ungor Raiders and others getting terrified. Manfred detaches to come terrify away Ungor Spearmen. So that's good play there. Try and get rid of some of my chaff units to isolate my monsters. And, I mean, the spawn, one unit did get effectively killed, but they're technically still here. The other one is still here as well, but I've already used the Cygor summon and both of the spawn summons. So, with all the Traderkins I've been casting too, I probably don't have enough for another Cygor summon. We'll see. Also, if a really nice blob presents itself for Traderkin, like this right here is looking like it will, could generate a lot of value that way. Blood Knights are going to charge in. They do get a nice charge situation on the Jabberslythe. Jabberslythe's animation kind of carries it further away from its own support units, which is a little bit of a problem. I'm going to try and get these Ungor Spearmen, but it looks like they're actually pathing there into the center, which is not ideal. But the Vargeist and the Blood Knights just swarming at this point. This other unit of Blood Knights over here trying to finish off these Chaos Spawn. The Bloodbrute Behemoth is here as well now. Got a little bit of a rear charge on the Blood Knights, so he can try and punch some of them down. Mostly just trying to keep him healthy as well for the final fight against Manfred. Here comes the Traderkin. Yes, does quite a bit of damage here. Huge amount of value. If I mouse over, yeah, I mean, you can see the kills racking up. Bray Shaman on the Chariot has also done quite well for himself. Just, you know, killing chaff units with his Chariot. He's going to be in a little bit of danger here to Manfred, but that sort of timing burst of that Traderkin was devastating to this entire blob right here. And it does look like, ooh, zombie summon, yep. I was going to say, after that cast, I for sure don't have enough Winds of Magic for another Cygor. That's okay. Balance Power has actually shifted back towards even, as a lot of my units are also starting to break. Basically, all of my infantry support is gone. I've got a handful of these Wolf's Runners. But, oh man, the Jabberslythe also does a diving attack animation on Manfred and pushes it directly into the Blood Knights, so that's definitely not ideal. Handful of axes are going to come in and poison the Blood Knights. Oof, nice attack animation for the Bloodbrute. Bloodbrute against Blood Knights makes sense. Khorne is pleased, no doubt. You would think, you know, if I know undead aren't really susceptible to chaos, but Blood Knights, it does seem like, would potentially be sort of Khorne-oriented, right? Because I mean, they're into the whole blood thing anyway. I don't know. Seems like there could potentially be some crossover there. Who knows? I'm certainly no lore master, but Bloodbrute is taking some damage in this fight, despite punching pretty hard. Unsupported against Blood Knights, he's definitely going to get kind of canned. And now Manfred comes down. All of a sudden, things are not looking great for the Bloodbrute. Might get routed off here, but has he done enough damage already? Centaurs are going to rush in. They're out of ammo, so they can kind of pin things in, poison them as well. You can see the speed going down to 60 there for the Blood Knights. Manfred, likewise, hopefully be poisoned a little bit so he can't catch up to the Bloodbrute. It's got less than 10,000, or less than 1,000. Yeah, definitely less than 10,000, I think, base, but less than 1,000 HP left in total. Thankfully, Morgor also applies poison and can kind of keep these targets debuffed, at least for a short amount of time. Don't mind the skittering in the background. My cat's just destroying something. No big deal. But the Bray Shaman is going to be very key. The Tuskor Chariot actually pretty fast. You can see 70 speed there with the... 77 with the Primal Fury. That allows the Bloodbrute to rally, come back. And this is it for Manfred. Nice charge from the Blood Knights. Will it be enough? Manfred just takes a few attacks there from the Bloodbrute. He's going to try and summon up some zombies, but will it be enough? Or will the Blood Knights be able to take it? And in fact, they are not. That attack finishes it, kills Manfred, and the Bloodbrute simultaneously routs. So there we go. Run on home, buddy. You've earned it. You've earned a rest. Oh, yeah. We can take a look at the values here in just a moment. Bray Shaman watching the Banshee disintegrate into tiny little pieces. I guess if ghosts do that. Anyway. Yeah, great game to Samurai Warrior. Triple Blood Knight has been long the bane of Beastmen. Like this kind of a build, I don't think... I mean, in the hands of a good player like Samurai Warrior, I don't think this would have been beatable much at all before for the Beastmen. Like, it would have been very difficult, certainly. But I do feel that both the Jabberslith and Gorgon are going to be great options in this matchup due to the lack of missile play. And now you can definitely trade monster mash-wise with vampire counts. I mean, the Blood Brute right here, granted, inflated value fighting very expensive Manfred, but still 3,639 value. A lot of damage against the Blood Knights as well, just 11,000 damage overall dealt, so that is pretty impressive stuff. The Jabberslith does actually more HP damage overall, but a lot of that's against Chaff. Still, though, 2,000 value, easily paying for itself. Definitely think that both this combination in particular of the Blood Brute and the regular Jabberslith, I think will be pretty good in this matchup going forward. We'll see. Also, Gorg Hooves didn't quite pay for themselves, but I do like them quite a bit as a unit. I do think you'll see them pretty frequently. They're a little expensive, but, I mean, at the same time, not that expensive for what they actually give you. Yeah, spawns do okay. They kind of get wrecked here, but that's okay. The Gore Herds, actually, Ungor Spearman Herd, if they don't get terrified too quickly, can trade very well into Undead. And then almost, yeah, 3,700 value on the Bray Shaman as well. Oh, man, with that Traderkin. I could have made this, I guess, specifically about Traderkin, but there you go. Bray Shaman Lore of Wild on the Tuskgore Chariot. You got to be careful doing Cav Monster Blobs, because Traderkin is nasty. As we have seen, Blood Knights all get excellent value as well, though. 3,200 on one of them. The other one's not quite paying for themselves, but pretty close. A lot of the chaff is just here to die, and they do. I mean, some of the zombies are actually pretty cost-effective. Yeah, the Banshee, I like the pick of the Banshee here. Cheap Terror. Beastmen don't have too much magic damage, but at the same time, yeah, I don't know. Personally, I mean, I think now in this matchup, you might want to go Mass Cavalry with, like, a cheap Flying Lord and try and get extra winds of magic to spam... Gaze of Nagash, I think it's called. Probably very good against these unarmored-ish beasts. Anyway, let's get to some testing and see how the Gorgon performs against a Shaggoth. And here we are, we've got the Blood Brute Behemoth plus 4 more regular Gorgons against 5 Shaggoths. We're going to test it out here. One thing you'll note about single entity combat and just testing in general in this game, you should always take any testing you see with 50-pound bags of salt, several of them, because... like, one-on-one combat is not really how this game typically works. I mean, generally, all units should only engage with support, and RNG can heavily determine the outcome of a matchup, which is why it's kind of not quite correct to say X unit beats X unit unless there's, like, a significant disparity where it's a pretty much guaranteed win every time. When there's kind of parity or equivalent stats between different units, like here with the Shaggoth and the Gorgon, they are certainly very comparable as they all kind of engage here. We can see the base Gorgon, 520 weapon strength. I mean, Dragon Ogre Shaggoth 460, so a little bit less weapon strength overall. Shaggoth's got a better charge, does pay for extra speed and armor as well, missile resistance. But in general, I mean, high attack, defense. Shaggoth has slightly higher defense and attack, both. But of course, the difference in weapon strength, 30 bonus versus large here. And I believe, yeah, 30 bonus versus large here. So you see there's a pretty good degree of parity between these units. And already, the Blood Brute Behemoth we would expect is a little bit more elite. It has the Frenzy, has the scaling damage. This is one that you would expect probably like 80% of the time or more, the Blood Brute Behemoth should win. These other ones I would expect to more or less be a 50-50 trade. Maybe not quite, depending on RNG, because there's only 4 of them, but we'll see. And the Blood Brute Behemoth does win out his engagement. Nice to see. This other Shaggoth here as well. This one's pretty close. This one here is also very, very close. This one here, the Shaggoth routes due to leadership, even though the HP is actually pretty close. Some of that might be due to, you know, other nearby units, and we're honestly, in true sense, probably testing this a little bit too close. But again, take testing with a grain of salt. It's hard to really replicate like true testing, and even then, when you do, how useful is it actually hard to say. But what we see here is that it's like basically a 50-50 trade. These two are literally going to kill each other. We'll get some close-ups of this final duel still happening. And... yes. The Gorgon literally falls on the Shaggoth and kills him. So these two actually literally killed each other. A very rare engagement there. The other ones, more or less, was a 50-50 trade. I mean, the Blood Brute won pretty decisively. But, yeah, I mean, other than that, I would say that these are very, very comparable monsters. We can even look at the price here after the fact. I think they're exactly the same price. And as it turns out, Taurox also beats Sigvald, even if Sigvald has all of his buffs, which is interesting, certainly. Not necessarily pertinent to today's video, but we'll let them fight it out. I mean, it's chaos, you know, you gotta let them fight it out. You can't hold up all that anger inside. You don't want to build it up so it just explodes in a volcano or something, right? You gotta let it out. And Sigvald is probably enjoying this, I mean, let's be honest. So, it does take some time, and it's actually surprisingly close, but again, a little bit of RNG might turn out differently if you were to test that 5 or 10 times, or 100 times. You get a more accurate percentage. Law of large numbers, right? Bigger sample size will give you a more accurate depiction of reality. But in general, I mean, both sides should probably largely pay for themselves, and they pretty much do. I mean, a couple of them lose, a couple of them win. And we do see that kind of reflected in the damage valuations here, where like a couple of them are under 2,000, a couple of them are over 2,000, one of them is over 3,000. There you go. So let's actually compare these two units in terms of stats side by side. I do think this is probably the best comparison, given how similar these units are in terms of usage and price. Yeah, 2,000 points, literally exactly the same. They are very similar in terms of most of their stats, Fear and Terror. I mean, obviously, the one big advantage the Gorgon does have is regeneration, and also much higher base HP. I will say that is a pretty significant advantage. The extra armor certainly does help the Shaggoth a bit, but the Gorgon definitely seems a little bit more survivable overall. The missile resistance also helps in a lot of situations for the Shaggoth. Likewise, just being that much little bit faster means he can potentially avoid damage that the Gorgon is forced to sit and take at only 64 speed. But of course, Gorgon being a Minotaur type unit does get Blood Greed as well, juicing him up even more once he gets that. Immunopsychology literally doesn't matter at all, but melee attack and charge bonus are quite nice. So, I mean, definitely very good. The Shaggoth has long been kind of the yardstick, and maybe a little bit overrated in my opinion, but still unquestionably a very strong monster. Gorgon is on that level, if not slightly better for the cost, honestly, given the regeneration and higher base HP. Certainly, he will be able to survive late-game situations where the Shaggoths would not. For example, against the vampire counts there, right? Like, Shaggoths, I mean, Chaos, it's not like they're particularly very strong against vampire counts. But anyway, just going quickly again to the Blood Brute, I do think the extra 550 points, it's a lot to pay, but it's probably worth it. I mean, you just look at this guy all chevroned up, and he's above that anyway, so you get the scaling damage and Frenzy for free. Given this guy's leadership is 90, right, you're going to be getting the benefit of Frenzy most of the time. And, you know, that stacked on top of the Blood Greed is an additional, what, 15 melee attack, 15 or 20% charge bonus. Wow, 20% charge bonus. A little bit of extra weapon damage as well, extra leadership. So you stack these two on top of each other, plus having Woodsman as a big monster is awesome. Means you can fight in the woods without having penalties and such. Very, very good trait to have. So, yeah, Gorgon. Awesome. Very good. Beastmen probably needed it a long time ago, but it's finally here, and it is awesome. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, all that jazz. Early access content coming your way, so be sure to do that, and we'll see you next time.